Good morning, everybody. Bridge Church Spanish Springs, or anybody else paying attention this morning. I hope that today finds you well. We have a few things to talk about today, but none of them quite as important as the safety and well-being of all the folks being affected by the fires that are just dancing around our town, that are bringing in all this smoke. And the smoke in itself is pretty bad news for a lot of folks. Yeah, and so I would just encourage all of us to take some time and pray for the firefighters and for people who may have lost their homes, or folks who may soon lose their homes, and anything else regarding the stuff going on. And unfortunately for us here in the Truckee Meadows, a Smoky Valley is not something we're used to. It happens often in these fires right now. I understand that some of them have converged together to make one large fire. In any way you look at it, that's scary business. So yeah, let's just pray for those folks and hope the best. And I'm fairly certain that in a couple days, couple weeks time, we'll have some resolution to these. But until then, we'll just keep those folks in our prayers and do our best to do our best. So we're still doing this church stuff in the middle of a global pandemic, which has created all kinds of unique challenges, and it is forcing us, the church, to think about church a little bit differently than we have in the past. We've been doing church the same way for so long that it is difficult to imagine doing things any other way. But because of this COVID pandemic, our hand is being forced. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. Really, I don't. And I'm going to tell you why. The first century church started out in a whole bunch of homes. Wasn't very well organized. These are people that got together and they talked about Jesus. They shared their lives. They were under a great deal of persecution. And in the midst of that, the church not only grew, it exploded. What an amazing time that must have been. You know, fast forward a couple hundred years in the church, gets so large that there has to be some sort of organization, some sort of central authority to say, yes, that is biblical, or no, that's not biblical. And considering they didn't have a Bible yet, they had to figure that out as well. So fast forward to us 2,000 years later, and we have our nice buildings and our programs, and that's all well and good. But I think it spoils us. It spoils us, and we end up focusing on things that are important but shouldn't be the priority. And now we're forced to look at it very differently. And like I said, I think that's okay. And one of the things we have to be forced to look at is how, when, where, and why we as the body of believers meet to come together for worship. That is a foundational issue that we're going to have to work through over the next couple of months. And one of the things that, at least in my head, that makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of people out there that have a concern about gathering in large groups, and that's an understandable concern. But folks may not mind getting together with 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 people. And so my question is this: what prevents us from getting together, meeting at, say, someone's house on a Sunday morning with 3 to 5 church people and enjoying worship together, watching it on YouTube or the Facebook, however you're getting it, and you may not be in the church building with us, but you would be with other believers. And we know what the Bible teaches about that iron sharpens iron. And it's our unity. It's our unity in Christ that makes us strong. And I don't know exactly how to go about doing this just yet, but this is something that I'm praying about a lot, because there's a good portion of our people are still out there, and they're watching, and I'm engaging with them from time to time, but they're kind of on their own, and that's something that we need to figure out how to handle it. Wouldn't it be great if on Sunday morning there were people meeting in the building, and then we had groups of people meeting all throughout the Spanish Springs here? And you see, now is not the time. It would be hard to invite somebody to church now because a lot of people don't want to go into a large group. All right, we just said that. But it would be easier to invite somebody to your house or your friend's house where there's only a small handful of people, where you could sit on a nice, comfortable couch and then perhaps even talk about the message or whatever, however it goes. And so I would love to have some input on this. And if you have any ideas, give me a call. I'll put my email up on the screen later. You can give me an email. But yeah, this is a conversation we're going to start to have about midway through September. We're going to have an all-church meeting where we're going to talk about our vision for the coming year, and we're going to talk about our budget and all sorts of that churchy business stuff. And we're going to make it so that you don't necessarily have to be here in person to join the meeting. We'll probably Zoom you in. That way you can communicate as well. It's not just you're not just a spectator. You can ask questions or join conversations. And that'll be unique because I've never done a meeting that way. But like I said, our hand is forced and we're having to do things and think about things differently. So, which is why there's a lot of videos not only coming out of our church, but churches all over. This is our attempt to stay connected with folks who aren't comfortable with coming back. The problem with this format is it's a one-way street. It's not a two-way. There's no conversation that can take place unless you hit up in the comments. And if you're making comments right now, I don't even see those yet because I use a program that allows me to do this, and I don't necessarily see Facebook. And I can open it up, but there's like a 30 to 40 second delay, and then I confuse myself, and then it's all downhill from there. So let's see what's going on this week here at the old Bridge Spanish Springs. As usual, we try to keep our finger on the pulse of our community to see what's going on, to see where we can help. And there's a few things we have going. The first thing I want to talk about is praying for our schools. Schools started up at the beginning of this week and have since met only 2 days. So starting next week, what I'd like to do is have a time of prayer specifically for the schools. And I would like to have our church praying for these schools from 7 to 4, which is a full day. And so what we're asking for is people to basically donate an hour of their time throughout the day to commit to praying for the schools. Now, you don't necessarily have to pray for the entire hour, but you would pray during that hour, maybe read the Bible, spend time meditating, and just lifting up our local schools to the Lord, because they're really going to need it. They've been open since Monday, except Monday got canceled because of smoke, and today, which is Thursday, August 20th, has also been canceled because of smoke. And they may cancel tomorrow. Who knows? It really just depends on what the smoke decides to do. And the smoke out there is heavy, and it's not the good kind of heavy either. Although I will say this. I'm going to show you this picture right here. I took this picture from my porch yesterday, as you can see, right before sunset. And if there's anything good coming from this, is that the sun is absolutely beautiful through that smoke. This is another one So sometimes you gotta look, but you can find the good things in a bad situation. Along with our daily prayer for the schools that we're going to start next week, we are also going to start some prayer walking. In years past, we've done this as a group. This year, obviously, we can't do it as a group because of pandemic concerns. So we're going to do it either as individuals or even smaller groups would be okay. And there is a young lady here at our church who has volunteered to head that up, and her name is Stephanie. And if you want to get in on the prayer walk-in, you can give her an email. Her information's on the screen, and she'll get you set up. And you know what? Maybe you just don't want to deal with anybody at all. Listen, you can walk around the neighborhood and the school and pray all day long. That would be great. Either way you want to do it is fine with us. What else we have going on? So as you could tell, there's lots and lots of praying going on. And that's another thing that the pandemic has kind of forced us into, is we're a church of action, and we like to physically do things. And right now, it's not as available as it was previously. And so we spend more time praying, and I think that's a good thing. But that's just one guy's opinion. And so this week's message on Sunday has, usually by now, I'm done preparing the message. I finish up on Wednesday afternoon. And at this point, late Thursday morning, I'm not even halfway finished yet. And it's because it's definitely an interesting passage to unravel. And it'll be done for Sunday, of course. I'm sure I'll get it done today or tomorrow morning. But I'm reading out of the book of Ephesians in chapter 3, verses 14 through 21. And there's just a lot to unravel. It's your typical Paul word salad. Very rich, very deep, very theologically sound, but not always easy to unravel and explain. So we've got that to look forward to. And as I'm reading through this scripture today, I decided to take a break and go ahead and get the video out. I'm reading right underneath it in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. And right now, there's a lot of things going on. You know, we've got the racial protests going on. We've got presidential election and other election protests going on. We got people all over Nevada protesting the mail-in voting. We got people in Nevada protesting the protesters. We've got churches in California that are holding silent protests or peaceful protests. So, and they're meeting in their buildings at full capacity, and they're doing what they think is right. And that's the key, is what's right. And at what point can we as Christians say, listen, I know the Bible teaches one thing, but with all this going on, when are we as Christians allowed to do what we feel is right, even though we know the Bible might teach something a little different? And that's what we're here to talk about today. So Ephesians 4, 1 through 6, it says this. As a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble, gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. So there you have it. We are to live a life worthy of our calling. And when we decide to become a follower of Christ, one of the things that we have to learn how to do is submit our will to His. And I'm not encouraging or discouraging anything you feel like you need to do. But what I am saying is this. This stuff is not going to let up anytime soon. Right now, a lot of people are at the end of their rope. They're looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. But we don't know where the end of the tunnel is. People are kind of going out of their mind. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people, and when humans get scared, what do? We defend ourselves. And that's just a tough situation across the board. But as followers of Christ, we are called to live a life worthy of our calling. And that means that before we say and do anything, we really need to measure it up to what the Bible teaches us. So to answer the question, at what point can we do what we feel is right, even though it's not in line with biblical teaching? Well, you really shouldn't. God gives us those choices and freedoms to make our own decisions, true. However, as a follower of Christ, we need to submit our will to His, and that's not always easy. And I've learned over the years that when I trust in what God wants for us, what He wants for me, at that time it may not feel like it's working out all that well, but as I look back on certain things, I can see that it has. And I know this is not a desirable time. In last Sunday's message, I used a quote from the Fellowship of the Ring. And Frodo basically says, why does this evil happen to have to happen during my time? I had other things. All of us had other things on our mind. Nobody expected to be pinned down by a pandemic. Nobody expected to be pinned down by a 2.5 parts per million smoke in the air advisory. But here we are, and somehow we've got to figure out how to glorify God through all of this. It's one of the reasons we need each other. It's one of the reasons we've got to go out of our way to spend time with other believers, even if it's just with 1, 2, or 3 other believers throughout the week. We've got to do it. Because if we don't, the price is just too high, because it's too easy to walk away at that point. Paul tells us that we need to be humble and gentle. We need to be patient, and we need to bear with one another in love. And we've got to keep the unity of the Spirit. One body, one Spirit. And we have to go out of our way to do these things. That's what living a life worthy of the calling looks like. It's being gentle and patient. Even when you want to be harsh and impatient, it's instead of bearing with each other, it's pushing each other away because you think you're right. Maybe you are. But at what cost? This is a tough time for all of us. And I know that God's in this. I've seen Him working, and we're going to continue to see Him working. We have some community service opportunities that I'm going to bring up on Sunday, and we're going to be able to step in once again and help some kids at our local schools. And that's what we do. And I'm looking forward to that, because there's some positive going on in the midst of all this negative. And I think that if we as humans could see the light at the end of the tunnel, we would probably be doing better right now. But we can't. We don't even know where the tunnel ends. And so, keep your eyes on Jesus, even when you feel like you're blind. This is not the greatest time in the history of our planet, but here we are nonetheless. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep Him at number one in your life. And even when it's hard, we are called to live a life worthy of the calling. I hope that you have a great day and a great week. If you would like to stay up to date on what's going on here at the Bridge, you could text 84576. Text Bridge SS to 84576. Not only will you be up to date on all the information on events and everything else, you will also get a link that takes you to our Sunday program notes, message notes, things like that. And that's always a fun thing to have, you know. Since we're not handing those out right now, that's about the best way to get them. And also, if you or somebody you know has needs, as always, send me an email, give me a phone call. Let's see if the church can come together and continue to help people through all this nutty pandemicism. There's a new word for you, pandemicism. Have a great weekend. Have a good day. You know where to find me if you need me. With all that said, goodbye, good luck, and we'll see you on Sunday. Maybe not in person, but maybe on the camera.